Welcome, beginners, novices, and first-time adventurers. I am your resident game master, and this is JBTTG Reviews. So welcome to a Noob GM's review of Wizards of the Coast starter set featuring the Lost Mine of Phandelver. This adventure takes place off the Sword Coast with infamous locations like Neverwinter and Phandalin, Thundertree, Neverwinter Wood, and of course, eventually, the Lost Mine of Phandelver itself. I ran this campaign about 2 years ago. It was the first campaign that I ever ran. It was my introduction to both D&D and game mastering. I ran it with a collective group of players, both experienced and brand new. And I mean, I gotta honestly say, we had a fantastic time. We had a really fun time. And I think you will as well. So, for starters, what's included? Well, first, you get a 64-page booklet. This thing's got everything a GM needs to start and run the campaign. Then there is a 32-page rulebook for players from levels 1 through 5. And this rulebook is somewhat simplified and makes great reference for both the GM and players who are just looking to get started. There are also 5 pre-made characters. Each of these have their own character sheet with a bunch of reference material regarding those characters on the back of their character sheet as well. So it gives you a little bit deeper dive into histories and backgrounds and where these characters came from, And then finally, last but not least, you get a set of game dice. So the one thing about this campaign is the ease for a brand new GM, right? I think this is probably one of the easiest of campaigns for a new game master to get started with. All the booklets are equipped with plenty to help you make informed decisions when questionable scenarios arise. There will be, as in all campaigns, the occasional question that will perplex, even a seasoned GM. But fear not, there's more than enough answers to all of those questions somewhere on the interwebs, right? All you have to do is take a quick look, do a quick search, and you'll be on with the game soon enough. But for the most part, everything that's included in this book here will certainly be more than enough to get you from the starting point to the finishing point. So a big question is, how good are the pre-made characters? As I said, the starter set comes with 5 character sheets with 5 pre-made characters ready to go. You get a halfling rogue, a noble human fighter, a dwarf cleric, a folk hero human fighter, and a high elf wizard. I think these characters are great for a beginning campaign, both for a new GM and for new players. The two massive positives for these pre-made characters are that, first off, the selection from fighters to clerics, wizards, rogue provides a really good balance for the party, just in general. Second, at levels, 1 through 5, the characters themselves are easy enough to understand, right? The complexity of characters, such as like a wizard or a cleric, don't really become prevalent until much higher levels. And that's when things can get, a little more detailed and complex, and provide a lot more reading and research and interpretation and understanding when it comes to such things as spells and casting times, etc. So these 5 players, especially if you're new to the game, I think they provide a great chance for a new player to grasp the fundamentals of each class and race. And in addition, they allow a brand new GM a chance to grasp those fundamentals as well. So what's in it for your players? Well, the starter sets, in my opinion, is the full experience. Even though it's a shorter campaign, don't let the moniker of starter set fool you into thinking you're getting anything less than a full adventure here, right? But the nice thing about this starter set, though, it allows players enough time to adjust to and learn the rules, right? And the rules are somewhat simplified in this starter set. It also allows players time to learn how to manage their characters, how to work together, and how to, if they choose, if they so choose, how to role play to their heart's content. It also supplies, I think, plenty of challenges. There are definitely those moments when and where a character could, in fact, die. But that sense of danger, I think, gives the campaign what it needs, which is a real sense of risk and reward. So in these matters, I think that the starter set delivers fully on those. So I'm throwing this in here because I'll make the assumption that you are brand new to D&D, and you might be a new GM, and there's always that question of whether or not I should force my players to take a certain direction. And this is one of those campaigns where I would say no. I know there's a big argument always out there on whether you should railroad your players or not railroad your players, and I don't know. I think that is all circumstantial. There are times you want your players to go a specific way, and times you don't. However, the Lost Mine of Phandelver is a pretty, what's a good word? It's a pretty sustainable open world adventure, right? So I would say let your players choose the path that they want to travel and just roll with it, right? If you're a new GM, this is a great way also to learn how to adjust on the fly, and keep the game moving forward. Personally, I think flexibility is the key to good GMing anyways, That being said, I don't think your players would benefit any less from a little bit of GM railroading to specified and fully prepared adventures if you feel the need to. But in my experience, my players skipped over the first 2 prepared areas that I had into a third area that I was not at all prepared for. And hey, that's what happens sometimes. So we just rolled with it, right? Now, I don't know. You know what? I think this is a great, like I said, open world adventure that really doesn't require you to go step, 1, 2, 3, 4 to get to step 5, right? You can kind of just bounce all over the place. So, yeah. So, is there any downside to playing Lost Mine? I would say one, and one will absolutely comes to mind, and that is goblins, right? There are just too many goblins in this adventure, and I get it. They are one of the main antagonists. All right, that's fine. But, my advice here is to change things up a bit, right? Read ahead, get an idea of what's coming in the next chapter or two, and add some variety to help spice things up a little bit. The goblins will eventually become redundant to a degree. But, it's easy enough to give your players things to do, other than just kill, those little green buggers. So there might be too many goblins. Let's just leave it at that. So what's missing? What's needed to get started? Well, for starters, you need people to play, right? I think a good minimum number of people to play for this campaign would probably be 2. I know it's advertised as one to 5 players, but I think to get a nice balance, you should probably seek out at least 2 people to play this campaign. In that regard, if you can find 5, you're good to go. One of the things that's missing is a GM screen. It's not included. Now, do you really need a GM screen? Not really, right? I mean, the screen's purpose is to keep players from eyeing, not only your campaign notes, but, your dice rolls. That being said, though, there's plenty of GMs out there that roll their dice in front of their players. That's a personal choice you'll have to make, whether you want to do that or not. But a lack of a GM screen shouldn't deter you from starting anyways. Plus, no GM screen, I got an idea. Just turn the box sideways. Voila. There you go. You got one. Another thing that's, I guess, missing is player dice, right? I mean, it would be nice if more than one set of dice were included, but dice are a dime a dozen these days. They're pretty inexpensive. They can be found anywhere from, Amazon to Walmart to your local hobby shop. And always, listen, always support your local hobby shop, first and foremost, if you can. But you could also collectively use the dice that are included in the set, just passing them around, based on initiative. So there is that. There is no initiative tracker in the starter set. This isn't necessarily needed at all. I don't use a specific tracker in my campaigns. I just kind of keep track behind the screen on a notebook. But if, as I mentioned before, you're sharing dice, an initiative tracker would help to keep the dice moving around the table a little more fluidly, right? It also helps to let your players, especially your new players, use that time in between to try and prepare for their eventual turn. But, you don't need anything fancy here either. Just names on a piece of paper will do just fine. And then just update that list every time you enter a new initiative. And there you go. Next up, minis. Granted, you don't actually need miniatures to play a TTRPG, but in my opinion, I think they do make things a little more fun. But of course, this also depends on whether you're playing in person or online. Miniatures run you about $5 to $10 a pop. I personally supply my players with minis for every campaign. We play a hybrid game, both online and in person. Half the players from varying parts of the country, and then, 2 or 3 players at the actual table itself. Currently, I run a camera with the tabletop maps and minis, while simultaneously using Owlbear Rodeo for the digital side. But when I started, I just streamed the tabletop match, which, by the way, were all hand-drawn and pretty rough. Again, I'll dive deeper into these things in a future video, but you don't necessarily need minis, right? You could just print out some tokens, cut them out, and paste them to some cardboard. Of course, there's always theater of the mind. No maps needed, no minis needed. Let's just imagine our scenarios, imagine our settings, imagine everything that's going to happen. I don't know. Personally, I think the miniatures or tokens with maps make things easier for both new players and new GMs. Just simply because they provide something visually tangible. So that would be my recommendation to go into that direction. But last but not least, maps. Now, maps could be a huge discussion, but I'll get more into depth about that somewhere down the road. But as for a starter GM, just get yourself some artist paper. Cut out the panels of a large cardboard box. Grab a marker or a pencil or a pen and just sketch that thing out, right? We're not looking for perfection. All you're looking for is to provide a setting where you can let your players' imaginations take hold, but yet giving them something visually tangible to see, an area to actually move around in. My first maps were You see, they don't have to be a great work of art. They just have to be, right? Now, if you're more computer or printer savvy, you could always find the maps online, most of the time for free, and you can print them out, but this tends to be a little more costly, both in products and time. You'll need to resize the maps, print them to scale so they match your minis, which takes time, and of course, then there's the cost of the paper and the ink. So, take the easy road out, the easy way to success, and just sketch something simple, just something viable that your players can see and move around on. So finally, and in closing, one more note: don't be afraid to use this. Right? I have got highlights and notes in the margins and just scribbles everywhere in this booklet. I've got more cellophane tape holding this thing together than I think is probably even legal in in the Forgotten Realms. This is a massive tool as a new GM, and don't be afraid to just destroy it in an attempt to funnel your thoughts and your ideas throughout this campaign. So, listen, all in all, I'd say the Lost Mine of Phandelver gets a solid 8 out of 10 spell slots from me, right? Maybe even a 9. I mean, no campaign is ever perfect. They all lack in one way or another, but, then... that's our job as game masters, to make the content both interesting and enjoyable. Anyways, final word: Lost Mine is a great campaign for both beginners and experienced TTG role players. There's so much here to have fun with. This thing is chock full of just a great adventure for players of all ages and all experiences. So, man, I hope you check it out. And if you have played it, or you're thinking about playing it, or you are currently playing it, leave a comment below. Let me know what your experiences are with it as well. And any questions, drop me a line. I'd be glad to help you along. But until then, remember, be kind to one another, and most importantly, make sure you're good to yourself. Until then, I guess I'll see you down the road, or maybe I'll meet you at a tavern, or, well, you get the point.